All right, and we're back, and we're going to go to the Fox 56 video line here, and we're going to talk with Caleb Brown. He is the executive director of the Bluegrass Institute for Public Policy Solutions, BIPS for short. At least you got an acronym that's not something weird and hard to pronounce. BIPS is kind of fun.
I'm gonna go ahead and break news right here, guys.
Yes,
we are retiring that acronym.
Oh no!
I hate to tell you this, we're gonna keep using it. So
okay, that's I can't stop you. Can't stop you.
Saying. I don't have time to say the whole thing out
in this country.
So you're going to become the Bluegrass Institute for Public Policy Edicts? Is that
orders?
Decrees from the Vatican.
Edicts sounds good.
Sermons.
Yeah, I like that.
Sermons.
Let's dive right in. You guys have been very out front and aggressive trying to work on the housing issues in this state. Obviously, it's a national issue, but housing's this weird thing where, the federal government wants to do something, the state wants to do something, but at the end of the day, if the local governments don't do something, like it's hard because everybody's got a small piece, but the local governments, at the end of the day, they're the ones doing the zoning and stuff. So talk a little bit. You guys have thrown out a lot of proposals. There was some chunks of them that were in the bill that didn't pass. A few pieces were in a smaller package that did pass. Kind of talk a little bit about, let's start with what happened this session, and we can move forward past that to kind of what some of the remaining solutions available are.
Yeah, so we had a housing task force that was co-chaired by Susan Whitten in the House and Robbie Mills
and by the way,
in the Senate.
Both of them have been on the podcast talking about that issue. So
that's good. And I think they, like most lawmakers, frankly, are in it seriously. They're very concerned about young people deciding that the pasture is greener in another state. As you mentioned, this is a national problem, but it's not a problem that requires handouts or subsidies. What it requires really is deregulation from the state level at scale across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Local governments, for the most part, have really given young people short shrift. They're more concerned about people who already live in their communities. They're not really concerned about where the young people, the next generation, are going to live. And it seems like every county likes to say, well, sure, you can build housing over there. And if every county draws that same conclusion, what we end up with is the housing shortage that we have right now. The Kentucky Housing Corporation estimates that Kentucky is 200,000 units under supply, which is slightly different from a shortage, but it's still we're still seeing these large price increases in homes and a relative dearth of housing creation. Bowling Green and Lexington, where you are two of the hottest housing markets in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, where the price of a median home, the median home price there is about 5 times median income. And it wasn't too many decades ago where the median home price was about 2.5 times median household income. So if we're concerned about things like affordability, I know Andy Beshear's talked about affordability. Republicans in the House and Senate have talked about affordability. This is the big one. And making it easier for people to find the housing that best meets their needs needs to be a priority if Kentucky wants to be competitive for the next generation.
Yeah, and I think it's a problem beyond just like, okay, well, where am I going to live? Because housing is both a functional need, but it's also a path to generational wealth development and to building your access to credit and stuff. And so when you have people, if your answer is just, well, we just build more apartments, well, that's great for the apartment owners, but you have people that are just throwing money down a pit for rents when they could be putting money into a mortgage, which accrues wealth, which they can then use to either refinance the house to improve the house, or they can use to leverage for money for other things. And that's how you
sure, but you can also buy apartments and you can buy townhouses. Well, and I think one thing that Caleb brought up that I totally agree with is everyone is worried about affordability, but you've also said there's no need for government subsidies, and I agree completely with that. But at the end of the day, the new houses that have been built in Lexington, all of the new houses that have been built by the builders are the most expensive houses, and the builders aren't building affordable housing.
To be
so
fair,
what do you do about that?
So
to be fair, contractors will tell you, to Caleb's point, contractors will tell you it's because it's what we can build with the regulations that are in place, where we can turn any profit on the property. You know, I have friends of mine who tried to build middle to lower income stuff, and they said that we would lose money if we built that based on the hoops, government overlaid hoops that we have to jump through to build those properties. So is it government overlaid
hoops, or is it inflation? Is it the rising cost of supplies?
And so I agree
we can
with
let our
Caleb.
guest answer
So
that.
I totally agree with you, Caleb. I think, but like, so what's the solution to that? Because we don't want, builders aren't going to build things that make them lose money, right?
Right. No, it's the building business. It's not the building hobby. But you know, to your point, I think one, it's tariffs are bad for housing costs.
Yes.
Okay.
Deporting a large chunk of the labor supply that builds a lot of houses is bad for labor
I
costs.
hadn't thought about that.
Or bad for housing costs. But I would say within Kentucky, and I can't do anything about tariffs or immigration policy, but there are a lot of regulatory hurdles that are overwhelmingly local that prevent lower cost, sometimes smaller homes from getting built. So that 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or that 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that's built on a slab, those are getting increasingly hard to find. They are a small fraction of what gets built. And guess what? That's exactly the kind of housing that young people are looking for. I've got no problem with apartments, but we should understand that a lot of people living in apartments right now would prefer to own a home and feel that they are priced out of that home ownership. When I talk about deregulation at scale, that is to say, making it a lot easier, it's a lot of very small reforms that red states and blue states have done. And it's the kind of thing that allows developers a lot more certainty about what their costs are going to be when they go to build housing. And it signals to young people that their concerns are being heard. And I think that should be a nonpartisan point. And I want to make this very clear. Taxpayers do not have to be impacted at all for Kentucky to set the regulatory settings that will empower a large increase in the housing supply in the Commonwealth.
Caleb, I've got 2 questions for you. One, a lot of people think part of the problem are boomers aren't leaving their homes. They're not downsizing. So I think that's an issue. But also, and I'm sure Trey's warned you, I think the state telling local cities how to do planning and zoning is absolutely a front. It is way too much. It is way too much government overreach. I believe in the local level. I believe in local control, and I believe that Lexington and Fayette County makes $26 billion just off the farmland inside Fayette County alone every year. So why should Frankfort tell Lexington to chop up its USDA prime farmland for housing?
Well, I don't know about the issue related to the farmland within Fayette County, and certainly I think the property owners. Is that Fayette County? Is it Fayette County owns the development rights to a lot of that land?
No, it's privately owned.
Okay.
We actually have a PDR. We actually have PDR here where we pay landowners to not develop their farms.
Yeah, we're talking. It's horse farms in the urban service district. That's a whole stickier debate than housing zoning stuff.
Sure. So
Jared is very passionate about that. I apologize.
Hey.
So some of the issues here, with regard to boomers not downsizing, I'll give you an example. My mother, who recently bought a home in Shelbyville, it took her 2 years to find it. And what she was looking for was recent construction. She's an older lady. She wanted no basement, which is to say no stairs in the home. And she wanted something that wouldn't require a lot of maintenance. And really the main reason that she wants that home is to just have her grandkids over, to have my kids over. And by the way, I'm all in favor of this. But it took her 2 years to find it. She's just looking for a 2-1, a 3-2, really basic home that she can sort of have as her retirement home, her forever home. And what are young people looking for? They're looking for that exact kind of house.
That's a very good point.
And so in order to get the boomers to downsize, there have to be homes available for them to downsize into.
I know people, even not boomers, just people a little bit older than me, who, when the housing market started to take off in Lexington, they said, well, I'd really like to sell this house, which is probably a little bit too big for me right now, and downsize into something and take advantage of the market and, make some money off of this house. And they couldn't sell their house because there was nowhere for them to move to should they have sold that house. They would just be stuck in an apartment or
Really
something.
good points.
I can tell you, my neighborhood, I bought our house in 2015. We lived in a nice neighborhood, to be fair, but I bought our house in 2015. If I wanted to buy the same house in that neighborhood now, it would cost more than double. The houses in the neighborhood are costing more than double what I paid in 2015.
Wow.
But to me, that's a market problem. That's a market.
Yeah, but that's a supply issue.
Correct.
Yeah,
you're both right.
Markets
Go ahead,
function within constraints.
Yeah.
And those constraints are often regulatory. And if you look at where it's flat out illegal to build the kinds of homes that young people are looking for, I think you might be shocked. The way that zoning has grown up, it for a long time, it was for the purpose of separating industrial from agricultural, to separating residential. Now there are dozens of different zones, and you have to go seek special permission from your local government in order to build the kind of home that you want to build. Let me give you just a couple of the reforms that we think
I was gonna say,
really useful in this
so we don't
area.
need all the time in housing.
Yeah, sure.
We could spend all day talking about why the bill blew up. It's gonna come back again next session. So let's say, what are the top 2 to 3 things that Bluegrass Institute wants to see in the bill when it comes back next session?
I think third-party review might be the thing that moves the needle the most. A lot of other states have adopted this, and what third-party review is, instead of seeking a permit from your local government to make sure that your plans align with the local code and the state building code, you can take that to a licensed architect. You could take that to a licensed engineer, people who have expertise in this area and might well be the kind of people that the government would want to be making those decisions anyway. You pay them a small amount of money. They assume some amount of liability for being incorrect when they give you that rubber stamp. They stamp your plans, you move forward. And so what that effectively means is that developers have a lot more certainty, that their permits don't go down into a black hole waiting for the government to respond to their applications. And at the end of the day, it lowers prices because developers aren't having to pay additional payments on this property that they've purchased for the purpose of building homes. Now that's just one thing. Minimum lot sizes, shrinking the minimum lot size that local governments can demand that you build on. Minimum parking requirements are also add a lot of costs to building. But at the bottom line, we need to tell property owners that, yes, it is their property, and local governments need a really valid health or safety reason for telling you no when it comes to how you would like to use your own property.
And Caleb, to be honest, I am all for planning and zoning reform. I think it's ridiculous how long it takes, and it does need to be reformed. And you're right, we have way too many different zone categories. Completely agree with you. I'm just very wary of Frankfurt doing a one-size-fits-all for the whole state. I guess that's my point.
There are a lot of different ways to go about it. Our scholar Nolan Gray, who's from Lexington, by the way, wrote a great book called Arbitrary Lines about zoning. And Nolan suggests, hey, why don't you just give every locality a target for permitting and just say, you guys get there however you want, but that's the target, and there will be costs if you aren't able to meet that target. There are a number of different ways to go about it.
We got about 5 minutes left in the conversation, about 5.5 minutes. We talked for a long time today, and the Magic Television. We're recording this before we record the first part of the show.
Don't give away the secrets. You're breaking fourth wall.
And I'm sure on this show we will talk more about it in depth about it. Fayette County Public Schools, obviously a complete train wreck right now. You guys, Bluegrass Institute, and you, before coming to Bluegrass, you work at Cato, longtime supporters of charter schools, of varying types of vouchers to different degrees. You know, this kind of all feeds together. You know, there's a massive between the way that the start back up after COVID was handled in Fayette County. We were one of the last. I think we were the last school system in Kentucky. We're one of the last in the country to restart in-person schooling. That eroded a lot of faith in the school system. Now you have this thing with the superintendent eroding faith in the school system. We also have the federal voucher system coming into play. You know, talk a little bit about what the future could look like. And you know, Abby and I are both fervent believers that the SEEK formula in this state may be irreparably broken, and that we may be coming down with the federal stuff. We may be looking at an opportunity for real advancement on education funding in this state, which could also then roll into it if we have a more friendly administration. You know, charter schools or some sort of other thing. But how we fund schools in the state has an opportunity to advance, because you have a school like Fayette County with a massive budget shortfall, and it's only going to get worse because of how SEEK works, because it's by the student. As more parents pull their kids out, the formula in Fayette County gets worse. Talk a little bit about both kind of your Lucas Institute's thoughts on that, but also I think there's an opportunity for real significant positive reform if we were willing to take it.
Well, I will say that I think the scholarship tax credit program, that is the federal program that Kentucky has opted into, presents a real opportunity for families who are not happy with their present schooling.
And there's a lot of them here.
Now that doesn't necessarily mean those kids are going to leave for a private school. It might mean that they leave for another public school system. And
to be fair, they can use it for tutoring. They can use it to buy a laptop to help them with extra.
Yeah.
Like I think people misunderstand what the money can be used for. They think it's a straight like private school voucher program.
Just real quick, I'm very anti-charters, anti-vouchers, but the federal way, the way they drew this up, I like it. I support it. I think it's really good.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and to the extent that some systems are facing an exodus, empowered by this scholarship program, I think that will give us some pretty clear signals about how well school systems are meeting the needs of families around the state. And I think that will give us actually a lot of information about where change needs to happen at the local level.
I totally agree with you. And I think public schools have always said, we're not afraid of competition as long as the rules are fair. So I think we're about to see that litmus test come to light.
And remember that House Bill 563, which was the scholarship tax credit program,
Chad McCoy's bill,
that was ultimately tossed by our feckless state Supreme Court. That one of the key components of that was compelling every school district in the state to have a policy on the books regarding out-of-district transfers. I think a big opportunity for the legislature in the next session is to allow money that funds those local school districts to follow students out of district if families decide that that's what they want.
I'm so shocked that that's still a problem, because I remember being on the campaign trail working for Billy Harper in 2007, and Billy had been on the school board in McCracken County, and they had like an 8 county working district where this was available, where you could move to any school in that 8 county radius. And the fact that was 2007 and we're still talking about rolling it out statewide is just
so that's
shocking.
common practice, but there were always like a handful of people. It was like, if you live a mile from the county line and you prefer to go to that district, that's fine, but you have to give us one of yours. There were always these like interlocal agreements, but this is what Caleb's talking about is
it's a hostage
broader. Yeah, this is a much broader access.
That's what they had out there in the West. Like you could go to any school in that region,
and that's their interlocal agreement. But
so
go ahead, Caleb.
So I don't know about that, but when I went to high school, Callaway County High School, go Lakers, the county school district and the Murray City School District, the superintendents had what I could only describe as a handshake deal.
Yeah.
Where, hey, look, the county school system is all the way over on county high school is all the way over here. The city school is obviously in the middle of town. Let's just work it out. You know, we'll do some math on an envelope and we'll work it out. And I feel like that worked really well. And as part of a state champion speech team, the Callaway County High School speech team,
wow.
and the only ones who could beat us statewide, Murray High School. And so I feel like there was some friendly competition there. And I think more school districts ought to be empowered to welcome students from outside their district.
All right, Caleb, we're going to have to cut it off there. We're out of time. We need to get you on the audio podcast so we can have a more in-depth discussion about all this stuff. But Caleb Brown from the Bluegrass Institute, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, guys.
You're watching the Fox 56 Podcast Network. We'll be right back.